As I was heading back to the office from a sales visit, my boss came towards me as if he had been waiting for this moment.
So, where were you slacking off today? I bet you didn't close a single deal, did you?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I knew it. If slacking off brought results, we wouldn't be having a hard time, would we? I wasn't expecting much anyway, so no worries.
I'm sorry.
If you think it's okay to stay the way you are, then fine, but don't be surprised if you end up being dumped.
Saying this, my boss walked back to his desk with a triumphant look. I stuck out my tongue in my mind, thinking it's no big deal if someone like him dumps me. Looking around, I caught the eye of my coworker, Ashley, who had been watching. She was sticking out her tongue boldly.
You got an earful today too, huh?
Yay, but you get used to it if it happens every day.
No one would want that product anyway.
Exactly. With that, I chugged down a beer filled to the brim in my mug. This is my only salvation.
Don't you drink at home?
My wife doesn't drink, and I feel bad making her prepare drinks and snacks just for me.
That's why you're extra tired, right? You should relax a bit more, both at work and at home, like you are now.
Ashley then downed her glass of vodka in one go. I couldn't help but smile at that. But her kind words also felt like a thorn in my side. Ashley was the only person I got along with among those who joined the company the same year as I did, and she could be considered the beauty of the company. Ashley and I often went out for drinks after work since our first year. There were quite a few guys in the office who were after her, and some clearly resented me for often going out with her. Probably my boss was one of them. I thought that was the reason for the harassment I received from him. Maybe that's why I could bear it. Spending time with Ashley was always calming and enjoyable. I really liked those moments. When I got home after parting with Ashley, my wife, Michelle, came out of the living room.
Welcome home. You're late.
I'm home. Had some drinks today. Did you see my text?
I saw it, but
Michelle seemed to want to say more but visibly held back her words.
you're going to take a shower first, right?
Yo.
I need to talk to you after. Can you spare some time?
Of course. I'll go take a shower now. With that, Michelle smiled and went back to the living room. Feeling something off in her actions and expression, which she usually doesn't show, I hurried through the shower, not even sure if I washed properly. Sorry for taking time in there. What did you want to talk about? Rushing to the living room with my hair still wet, I found my wife sitting at the table, deep in thought. I quietly took a seat opposite her and waited for her to start speaking. A moment of silence. My wife and I are not great with words, often falling into silence with each other. This shared silence used to be strangely comforting, and was one of the reasons I started thinking about marrying her. But this silence was different. It was filled with unease. Is something wrong? I usually wait for my wife to speak first, but couldn't stand the silence and broke it.
John, who were you drinking with today?
Just a coworker, like always.
You mean Ashley, right?
Yeah, what about it?
Are you hiding something with Ashley?
I'm not hiding anything. You know Ashley well enough to know she can't keep secrets. Michelle and I had invited Ashley over to our house after we moved in, and since then, she and Michelle had become close enough to go shopping together.
Yeah,
But
Michelle's eyes were slightly red.
today, while I was shopping, someone I know mentioned seeing you entering a hotel with a woman.
That's ridiculous. I haven't done anything like that.
That person said it wasn't just once, they've seen it multiple times, and each time with a different woman.
I was left speechless.
Hey, can you tell me the truth?
Tears quickly filled my wife's eyes.
Are you really not doing anything like that?
No, I'm not.
What about with Ashley?
What? Nothing. She's just a good colleague.
Then, from now on, stop going out for drinks with Ashley.
Why? I raised my voice. I hadn't expected to hear something like that.
It's because I let you go drinking with Ashley in the first place that things have come to this. If you say it's a lie, then stop it for good.
I thought it wasn't unreasonable for her to come to that conclusion. But still, let me think about it. That was all I could say. I think I will never forget the look of my wife crying when I said that. But I loved both Michelle and Ashley. They were both important to me, so it seemed impossible to come up with an answer. Does love have to be just one?
It feels like it's been a long time since we've had a drink together like this. It's only been a month, though.
Yo, it does.
Maybe I'll lift my spirits today. I'm going to have a beer. Is that okay with you, John?
Without waiting for my response, Ashley ordered 2 beers from a waiter.
Honestly, I didn't think I'd be coming out for drinks with you anymore.
I'm sorry.
Why apologize? You've had your issues with Michelle, so it's understandable. And if anyone should be sorry, it's me. I apologize.
There's no reason for Ashley to apologize. Despite thinking that, I couldn't find the words to say it. Michelle had brought up divorce 4 days ago. Since that night, a tense atmosphere flowed between Michelle and me, eventually forming an impenetrable layer so thick we couldn't touch it. The scene before my eyes blurred. And then it became completely obscured. Unable to come up with an answer, I was silent as Michelle decisively brought up divorce. All I could do was watch her leave the house. Rumors that my infidelity caused the divorce spread throughout the company, and everyone, including my boss and the coworkers who looked up to me, started looking at me with disdain. I no longer talked to Ashley at work, nor did we go out for drinks. I'm suspected of cheating by my wife, so let's keep some distance for a while. I explained the situation and said that to Ashley, and she, without saying anything, obliged. She really was a good person. That's why I took advantage of her kindness. When I asked Ashley to go out for drinks after a long time, she nodded with a complex expression. Ashley acted as usual at our regular bar. But the me that Ashley sees is probably not the usual me. I stirred up the alcohol to drown out the discomfort, and I got a bad drunk. You said earlier I should be the one to apologize, and you're right. I wish you'd consider your family a bit more. There are plenty of guys after you, right, Ashley? I'm like a thorn in their side. Try putting yourself in my shoes. There are plenty of good guys out there, right? Why do you always drink with me? I just don't get it. I remember saying terrible things. It was nothing but taking out my frustration on her. Ashley just silently nodded all along.
I'm really sorry.
She said that, and hurried back home at our farewell. Her retreating figure is vividly etched in my mind, even through the haze of consciousness. I loved both Michelle and Ashley. But because of my indecision, I ended up hurting both of them. Lying in bed at home, all I could do was lament what a failure I was. By then, I might have been nearing my mental breaking point. Feeling awkward even to face Ashley and dreading going to the office where I felt I didn't belong, I started skipping work without notice. Hearing that Michelle had started dating my boss broke me. I couldn't leave my house, becoming like a puppet with its strings cut, unable to do anything. I managed to contact a resignation service to handle my departure from the job. As I listened to the dial tone after hanging up, I thought it was all over. Despite repeated hospitalizations, I eventually recovered and started working as a sales clerk at a bookstore near my home. It was a completely new field and position for me, but compared to my previous job where I had to sell things I didn't believe in, this job brought a much more fulfilling sense of tiredness. However, the more fulfillment I found in work, the greater the sense of emptiness became when I returned home. The space once occupied by Michelle's belongings remained unfilled. Then one day, something happened. While I was organizing books at the back of the store, a young male part-timer working with me called out,
"John, there's someone at the counter asking for you."
What's the name?
"I don't know, but she was a beautiful woman with long hair."
Ashley comes to mind when I hear beautiful, but she always preferred short hair. Michelle was a beauty with long hair, but it couldn't be her. So who could it be? Thanks, I'll be right there.
"Oh, because she's beautiful, that's a quick decision, ho."
Cut it out, it's not like that. Bantering with a young man, I approached the counter to see a woman with a model-like figure standing there. She was indeed a beautiful woman with long hair. But I didn't recognize her. "Sorry to keep you waiting. How can I help you?" As I spoke, I kept wondering who she could be.
"Well, nice to meet you. I'm a friend of Michelle, Nancy Collins."
It was the first time I met her. But more importantly, Michelle's friend. What do you need with me?
"Well,
She hesitated, then suddenly apologized.
I'm so sorry.
What?
It's all my fault."
I couldn't see where this was going. Customers and staff around us were looking our way. "Let's go somewhere more private." With the manager's approval, she and I moved to the break room.
"I was the one who told Michelle about your alleged affair."
She started speaking in an unnaturally calm voice, gently cradling the cup of coffee I handed her.
"Michelle and I have been friends since middle school, staying in touch even after we started working. We'd go out to eat together occasionally, and we shared many stories. Of course, including ones about you, John. She showed me your picture and talked about you with a smile. Michelle looked so happy. I like her. I wanted her to be happy because I thought you would make her happy. That's exactly why, when I heard you were having an affair, I was boiling with anger. At that moment, I completely lost my composure. I work in publishing and meet many people through my job, so I have a lot of acquaintances. I hear all sorts of things, good and bad. What's important is to stay calm and discern the truth. But I couldn't remain calm then. I contacted Michelle right away and told her what I heard. So, I'm truly sorry."
She apologized again. Thanks to her careful explanation, my mind was becoming clearer. It's not that I'm okay with it, but I'm glad you found out it was a lie. But how did you know it was a lie? As I asked, she looked up,
I heard it from Michelle.
Heard from Michelle. My mind was about to spin again when she, looking like she was on the verge of tears, spoke up.
I have request. Can you meet with Michelle?
Then she pulled a piece of paper from her breast pocket. It was a handwritten map.
Please look after Michelle.
Following the map, I arrived at a small cafe with a unique atmosphere. Its front windows were pitch black, preventing me from peeking inside. Despite being near the station, there seemed to be no one coming in or out. I thought to myself, what an apt place this was. Michelle always suited places like this. As I eagerly entered, I was surprised to find people inside. Some were reading books, others lost in thought. Some were sleeping. Some were whispering in conversation. And there were two women behind the counter, calmly watching over the customers. It took me a few seconds to recognize one of them as Michelle. The blue bruises barely hidden by her mask and her swollen eyelids. Just from that, I understood what Nancy had been talking about.
Hello?
As she said that when I entered, our eyes met. I felt Michelle's bloodshot eyes redden even more.
How did you know about this place?
A woman named Nancy told me. She came to my workplace and said she wanted me to go and meet you.
Nancy did.
I heard a lot from her. As I said that, she lowered her head in silence. Sitting opposite each other at a table by the open window, a thick layer of tension formed between us. The setting sun streamed in. For some reason, I felt I could break through this barrier. I strongly wanted to. I want to hear it from Michelle. What happened? I want to discern the truth. With that, Michelle, still looking down, began to talk about what happened after she left home.
After the divorce and moving out, I spent a few days at my parents' house, thinking about what to do next. I needed to find a job and a new place to live. That's when I received an email. It was from Tony, your boss. I had exchanged contact information with him at a company gathering, after he persistently asked for it, though I had forgotten about it since he never reached out afterward. The email said this.
A property owned by someone I know suddenly became vacant. It's a waste to leave it empty. So would you like to live there, Michelle? You can have it for half the rent.
The photos of the apartment were beautiful and the rent was incredibly cheap. In my haste, I immediately accepted. I think about how foolish I was. I didn't realize at the time how dangerous it was to let a man I barely knew have knowledge of where I lived. After moving in successfully, I was just settling down to start job hunting when Tony came with expensive-looking liquor, saying it was a housewarming gift. Since I hadn't properly thanked him, I invited him in without hesitation. That was the start of my nightmare. From that day, he came almost every night, toyed with me briefly, and then went back to his own home. My face was swollen and battered, looking for a job was out of the question. I was physically and mentally exhausted, unable to move. My phone was destroyed, and I couldn't contact anyone. I thought I might just die without being able to do anything. In my dazed state, I always thought of you, John. Why couldn't I trust you? I thought this was a punishment from God for not being able to trust you. That's probably why I was able to endure it. Then, at one point, he grabbed my hair and said,
You've been fooled so easily twice. It's laughable how stupid you are.
Twice.
You believed the information about his affair, right? I made that lie up.
I was shocked and couldn't speak. He continued.
I never liked him. Despite being incompetent, He was admired by the coworkers. And marrying a beauty like you, seeing his happy face made me sick. Now it's just too funny. None of them admire him anymore. He stopped coming to the office completely after he found out you and I were together. It's hilarious.
Hearing his words, for some reason, I was first and foremost relieved to learn that you hadn't cheated. Then, the thought that I needed to get out of there and apologize to you surged through me. I ran away that day, straight to Nancy's house, without looking back. The morning sun peeked through the buildings. It felt like I was seeing sunlight for the first time in a long time.
It seemed there was much more Michelle hadn't told Nancy. What she told me was far more harrowing than what I had heard from Nancy, and I couldn't even nod in response.
It's thanks to you that I could escape. Thank you, and I'm really sorry.
Michelle apologized. Her once meticulously cared for brown hair was now brittle and far from beautiful. Many questions came to mind. Why hadn't she come to see me right away? Was she planning to live without ever meeting again? But before I could contemplate more, one phrase escaped my lips. Let's start over. I couldn't quite read Michelle's expression when I said that. I continued. Before that, there's something we need to do. Will you help me? A month later, Michelle, Ashley, and I gathered in front of our old workplace.
Ashley is on the phone with a colleague inside, so when you hear the signal, come in, okay?
With that, Ashley handed me her smartphone. Got it. Thanks for everything this past month.
Seriously, convincing everyone was tough. You owe us a big night out next time.
Of course.
Ashley, really, thank you.
It's too early for thank yous, Michelle. See you later.
With that, Ashley went back to the office. The smartphone handed to me rang, and when I answered, I could hear my boss's excited voice.
Man, thank you. When was the last time I had such a happy birthday?
It was customary to have a small birthday party after work for an employee's birthday, and today was Tony's birthday. While I felt a sense of discomfort at the sound of the boss's voice over the phone, Michelle and I waited quietly for the signal.
Here, we have a present from all the employees.
What is it?
Tony, happy birthday.
Thank you. Oh, a message board. How nice.
Though he sounded cheerful, after a moment of silence, his voice darkened as he murmured.
What's this?
Michelle flinched next to me.
We ask people who have been helped by you over the years to write something. And today, representing those people, we have a special surprise guest. Please, come in.
At the signal from a male employee's voice, I took Michelle's hand and said, "Let's go together." The paper passed to the boss was filled with curses and complaints from men and women who had been subjected to his domestic violence and harassment. On the day Michelle and I talked at the cafe, I had contacted Ashley, and Michelle had reached out to Nancy about our plan for revenge against the boss. Both immediately agreed, with Nancy gathering information about the boss and Ashley convincing the employees to cooperate. Nancy said that bad stories about the boss were like dust that comes out with a good shake, and gathering them was no trouble at all. She also wondered why no one had tried to find out before. The large message board quickly filled up with text, and thanks to Ashley, we persuaded all the employees. Everything was ready, and all that was left was to execute the plan. What seemed like a reckless plan progressed incredibly smoothly. On the day before the execution, Michelle was visibly anxious, spilling tea and frequently changing TV channels. Watching her, I wondered, what will become of us after this revenge? I vividly remember her face when I said, "Let's start over." But she just looked down and said nothing. What was she really thinking? We probably always lacked the right words. I decided to prepare another surprise for the day of execution. A surprise for Michelle. When Michelle and I appeared at the entrance, the boss couldn't hide his surprise, as if wondering why we were together. His expression seemed to scream, "Why are you two together?" Happy birthday, Tony. This message board is a modest gift from my wife and me. As I spoke, the color drained from the boss's face, turning pale. The boss looked down at the message board, and after reading the written words, seemingly grasping everything, he looked at us with empty eyes and uttered a single word.
I'm sorry.
Domestic violence is a real crime, and my boss, who had repeatedly committed it, was undeniably a felon. Nancy told me no one had gone to the police before because of fear of the boss and the shame of having to detail the abuse. So, even though it probably wasn't right, I hadn't planned on contacting the police either. Instead, Michelle and I are getting remarried. We will have a grand wedding, so please pay for the entire cost.
What?
Ignoring the boss's bewildered look, I turned to Michelle. She had a surprised expression. This was my other surprise. I love you. Will you walk with me again?
Please do.
With that, Michelle smiled with tears in her eyes. It was the most beautiful smile I had ever seen. Many people attended our wedding. Ashley and Nancy, our former colleagues who had helped us, and the people from the bookstore where I worked, along with the staff from the cafe where my wife worked. Somehow, even regular customers joined in.
Congratulations, John.
In the midst of the bustling ceremony, Ashley approached me with a wine glass in hand. Her face red from either drink or fatigue. You okay?
Of course, but don't forget our promise, okay?
The usual bar.
Well, I guess that's okay.
With that, Ashley grinned. With a smile as bright as the sun. The smile I love the most. Ashley, I really like you.
What? Why so sudden?
Thanks for everything. Let's keep this going for a long time, okay?
Are you drunk?
Ever since Michelle suspected me of infidelity, I've been thinking. I like Michelle, and I like Ashley. Similar yet different. Different yet the same. Things that won't be conveyed unless said, and things that become misunderstood once spoken. What is love, really? I never found a definite answer. Not before, and probably not in the future either.
I like you too, John. Call me, okay?
With that, Ashley returned to her seat. At that moment, Michelle came back from the restroom.
What were you and Ashley talking about?
Just saying congratulations.
You're grinning a lot, you know.
With that, Michelle also smiled. I can never forgive the boss for hurting my wife. But I feel like, without this ordeal, I wouldn't have had a future where my wife and I could laugh so freely together. Thinking this, I felt a tiny bit of gratitude towards my boss.